Marjorie Morgan, and I have just lived here in Seasons approximately 2 years, but I was born in Morganston in 1925. This is the house where I was born, and in the field next door is the small house that my father built, where he could, where the hired man and his wife and 2 or 3 children lived. Dad did that by himself because we really needed someone to help him. This is the kitchen, and this was our guest room upstairs that my mother always kept so shiny, dusted and everything, and some of the little keepsakes we have were always on that dresser in the spare bedroom, and they were always dusted and just in case someone came to visit. One thing we don't see in this picture is the rubber tire on a chain that was there for any kids that visited, so they could swing and have a little swing on the tree just out of sight here. But that was the place that I lived until my dad died. This was a picture of a wedding of my niece, my husband's niece. It's the 4 Morgans, Wilbert Morgan and his wife. They would be my in-laws. And Wilbert's wife is Mary Hennessy. And next to her is Frank Morgan, who lived just at the new bridge just put in Trenton here over the railway tracks, and his wife Goldie Gunter from the Gunter settlement just outside of Wooler. And next is our famous milliner, Mabel Emerson, who lived on the main street in Tweed and was a wonderful milliner. She was known far and wide for her beautiful, beautiful hats. Just behind her is her husband, Harold Emerson, who ran the Daily Express from Tweed into Belleville. Every single day he went back and forth between the two. And here at the end is the oldest Morgan, John B. Morgan, JB he was known as. He's the lumberman and had lumber mills up north, and was known for his tremendous laugh because he was a big man and he had some great stories. He had a wonderful memory, too. He knew all the stories of the original Morgans years and years ago and loved to tell them. So this is the Morgan clan as they were at Mary Emerson's wedding. This picture is taken on the lawn of what was then Bruce Stewart's house. In behind it is the barn that is now the beautiful new Prinz barn on Carman Road. Beautiful place. The reason that crowd is there is it was a meeting which happened once a year of the young mothers who brought their children to a get-together for what we called at Carman the mission band. And it was especially to include young mothers who brought all their little children, and they always had it outside on the lawn, as you can see there. And you'll see all these little babies. Many of them brought their children to mission band years later. My father was mayor of Brighton. I guess at that time we called him Reeve of Brighton for 4 years. This one, it was in 69. And the Queen was going to visit Canada, Ontario, and her headquarters were in Regina during the time of her visit in Canada. My mother passed away approximately 3 weeks or 4 weeks before the Queen's visit, and of course she had looked forward to being with my father for that day. She had all the voile material, it was called voile at that time, but it laid out on that spare bed all ready for her to make herself a dress. So it was a great disappointment to her not to be able to go to the visit. But Archie Edwards was the name of the town clerk, and he got permission from the council. They had a special meeting to get permission to ask for me to be presented. I have a copy of that letter, which I prize, to be presented in my mother's place, to accompany my father. And so that's why I was there. My children laugh. It's not showing in this picture, but my heel was off the carpet a little bit. And my children said, "Mom, you must have been starting to curtsy." And I was. We had been asked to wear gloves, and someone showed us how to curtsy. All of those of us who had permission from the Ontario Provincial Police to be on the highway that day, because every little road was shut off from Port Hope to the air base. And so it was very strict. Anyway, we met at my father's house directly across from the public school at the corner of Perry Avenue in Brighton. And we were all allowed to ride in my father's car from Brighton, from his house in Brighton, where the bunting was, "Welcome to Brighton." I still have that bunting, by the way. We drove to Trenton Air Base to meet the Queen. And John Foote was one of the men there. He was the mayor of Port Hope at that time. Part way down in the car, he spoke out loud. He said, "Oh, my medals." He had forgotten his medals. And it's almost impossible to believe, but they were friends from other visits. But the prince said, "John, where are your medals?" And so we all knew what it was about because he had been so upset on the way down. Yes, this is Mike Starr, the Honorable Mike Starr, I believe, who was a government person. I can't tell you, but it was his job to introduce each one of us to the Queen. Her eye was directly on the person who was meeting her. And I felt what many others have said. When you meet her, you have her attention for that split second. My husband said, the phone has hardly stopped ringing this morning. He said, "Everybody wants corn today." And he said, and I took the liberty of filling the box of the half-ton right to the top with corn, and we're going to have to go out and take corn for sale to Presqu'île Point. And I got out of my special clothes, and we did go to Presqu'île Point. Oh, this is a lovely picture of my mother. She and her parents, Clarence and Herminia Walker, moved to Peterborough, and she was about 15 years old in this picture. And this piece of jewelry she's wearing is called a lavalier, and I have worn it with many gowns over the years. It is an unusual piece of jewelry, but it belongs now to my granddaughter, and she prizes it greatly. This is a picture of my dad and mother taken in a photo studio somewhere, but mother's wearing a green satin dress that she wore, that she made for their wedding. Carman Church is a very, very old church, 1769. And it has many, many lovely memories for me. I went to teach there. I had 22 children in the class in that little school. This is a picture showing Carman Cemetery, which has always been kept, for a number of years, has been kept in excellent condition. When I was teaching there, Bernard Morgan lived next door, in the farm next door, and he was on the cemetery board, and he had so many complaints about the condition of our cemetery. So they came to me as a teacher, and they said, could you change some Friday for another day, and we'll close the school for at least one day, and we're going to clean up that cemetery. And they got everybody along the road that had a tractor or would let them use their tractor, and if they had a hired man, they sent him too, and they worked all day with all the tractors that they could put together from all along that road. They dug up those alders and different knotty stems that there were there. They dug it all up that day, and the women came to the school, and they put on the best dinner you could imagine.